Oh hey, it's Wes, and today is an exciting day. We have something novel and interesting. Last, we were looking at this, the Amran 200XS. Great light, but that's boring. Zhiyun, on the other hand, has decided to pique my interest with their new tiny lights, the Molus series, the X100, and the G60. Is keeping me interested the most important thing in the world? Yes, it is, Zhiyun. Thank you for doing that. When last we looked at Zhiyun, we looked at their light bar, which was fun and interesting, but a little underwhelming because of its power limitations. How are these kitschy little devices going to work out? Let's find out. Starting with, as always, the categories and the build quality. We're going to try to review both of these lights in one video, so we might end up being a little long. Let's start with the 100. Look how small this is. This can produce 100 watts of light, and it gets smaller. This is just a battery pack. This is the light itself. You can plug it in the bottom and power it via USB-C or its DC included adapter. On the side here we have surprisingly nice dials. They're a little bit wobbly, but they feel great, they look great. And you have the screen on the back here. Let's plug it in. Boop. And our power button on the front. Not a big fan of that because you have to hold it down until it turns on. There we go. And as you can see, our fan passes straight through the device. And this is how they get the job done. How they can be so small. The whole thing is basically just a heat sink, and they've managed to miniaturize all the components to fit in here. The fan doesn't kick on until it absolutely needs to. So I've got this up to 100% now. Whoo-wee boy. The fan still isn't even on. Because of this form factor, this thing comes with a lot of warnings. Caution, fire. You can get really close to the hot parts of this light really easily. So you've got to be careful there. And if, say, you wanted to uplight something, and you set this down, you will be starving the fan for air, and it will overheat and shut down quickly. Thankfully, it does manage itself and shut itself down. If we look closer at this, you will see that everything that we can see here appears to be plastic. But on the inside, the fan heatsink itself is metal, and we have 1/4-20 mounts here that go right into the metal heatsink. That's essentially the frame itself is the heatsink, what holds it all together on the inside. Now, its proprietary mount here, unfortunately, is just some sort of a nylon plastic. It's pretty sturdy, but you can't really hang a full softbox off of that, which is why in the larger kits, you can get a Bowens adapter, where you can mount a Bowens on the front here, and then the light on the back. I was quite pleasantly surprised that I could mount my full 3-foot softbox on this with grid, and we'll see some results from that shoot a little bit later. One weird quirk though is that this is the Bowens mount for the X100, this is the Bowens mount for the G60. They're different because the X100, the air has to flow out the front of this, and the 60, the air flows in and out this device and not out the front. I wish they had just gone with one. It's a little weird having two different Bowens mounts going on here. Now, it's really cool that they have Bowens mounts adapters. It's just a little weird that they're different. With this one, the screen is pretty squishy. This one here, it's actually a little harder on this one. We have different dials. I wish the dials matched. It's weird how they have such a different design aesthetic going on here. And this one, again, we're all plasticky, but there's a metal subframe on the inside. Couldn't figure out how to open this up without breaking the whole thing, unfortunately. A lot of button wobble. This folds up nice and tight. Look how tiny this is. Again, we have the plastic nylon front here. And just to compare, here is our previous smallest 60-watt light. It's actually a little more than 60. The Godox ML60. Bum bum. Look at the difference here. This has built-in Bluetooth, very similar size COB LEDs, but as you can see they're all different LED boards, which is interesting. You'd think that they might have combined the two, but nope, they're different. And then we have the battery here, which has a nice metal finish and a grip on it, very cool. And It snaps onto the side here. All the ports, interestingly enough, have rubberized covers. Not sure why though, because this thing is so wide open that there's no way it's in any way weather resistant. I don't know, I guess they're just keeping junk out of the ports. So this battery is honestly the nicest feeling part of all of them. It has a great feel, and not only can you use it on this, you can use it to power any USB-C device. If we look closely here, this will do power delivery output up to 20 volts 1.5 amps, which is 30 watts, and this is a 57 watt hour battery, and that clips on really nice. It's honestly astonishing to me how much design work went into this. Most other LED light systems, they're kind of just based on past designs or inspired by past designs or building on past designs. They just went crazy and made two completely new light systems. This might not be surprising to you, but I see so many base similarities inside and outside of electronics these days. I have a diploma in electrical engineering technology, so I think about this all the time. They just went and made two completely new things, and this is fantastic to me. So although, and yes, we're still talking about the build, although the build quality isn't the greatest, the toughest, these aren't made to be like professional rigs on movie sets, but I think they'll be used as such, because you can put this light in places that you can't put anything else, and it's 100 watts. Which is phenomenal. 100 watt class light used to have to be this big. And so I'm gonna give this build quality a 6.5 out of 10, but I have to give them some bonus points that don't really count toward anything for innovation, for really going out there and doing the thing. Alright, as far as feature set goes, these have a lot of features. We'll go into the Zhiyun lighting app. There it is, the G60. 20 seconds later. Now, unfortunately, I seem to have the pre-production version of the X100 because the pre-production version doesn't have Bluetooth connectivity. This is what your app is going to look like, however. Adjust brightness, adjust color temperature. We seem to have some problems here with the pre-production nature of this. We have presets for color. We can capture color. Let's see. Nope, I don't seem to have any effects in this app. We have CTO presets. So we don't have crazy effects and stuff like that. We're just controlling the light output. We are missing some features in that respect. So we don't have a built-in bones mount, it has to be attached. Unfortunately, that's the nature of being this small though, so I can give them a little bit of a giveaway on that. This one, it doesn't have native battery support. This one does. That's fantastic. We have very good color quality. Actually, we're going to talk about that soon under light quality. And for power output, let's look at our power curves here. The 100 does a very solid 98 watts at all color balances, which is fantastic. The 60 is pretty close, but at 2700K, you can do 79 watts. And then at the other white balances, you're closer to 63, 65 watts. So we are living up to its potential here, but it's not perfectly linear with regards to color temperature. Overall, for feature set, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. They are not the most feature-rich devices on the market. Light quality. Let's look at some sample images. Pretty good for a studio setup. Let's go into some motion here and see how we can do with a video.
Lazy days in mid-July, country summer's morning, dusty haze on summer highways, sweet magnolia calling. Now and then I find myself thinking of the days when we were walking in the Alabama rain, driving movies Friday night.
That's phenomenal. Sorry about all the lens flares. I wanted to put a little focus on the lights themselves. Some people like them, some people don't. Overall, I am very impressed with the light quality coming out of these. especially since you can put them into like a giant softbox and it still works. Like this one here was in a huge gridded strip box and it was still working fine. Now I was shooting wide open though at f1.4. And if we compare the three of these here, the 8300 Pro, the Zhiyun X100, and the Amaran 200XS, which has very high quality LED light reproduction, look real close here. You can see our white balances are slightly off, which isn't so much of a concern. What we're more concerned about is the magenta or green shift. So these are all calibrated to their own gray swatch. And the 100 here, you can see has a bit of a green shift. We have to push it up into the magentas to balance it out, and we know the 200XS has a very small green shift, so the green shift on the X100 is a little bit more than we'd like, but it is still fairly small. If we go over and look at the skin tones here, you can see we have very good representation in the delicate pink colors. So quite good color reproduction. Overall, I'm going to give this a light quality of 9 out of 10. They are phenomenal quality. Love it. Usability. Number one, the first big win here is the size. That is like just a massive advantage over everything else. But we have a slight loss in that we have to attach things to it to get it into like a normal configuration. These do, however, come with other things. Like they have their own reflectors that can fit in here if you get a larger combo pack, and you can also get a light dome that goes onto each of these. Nice and squishy. So let's put a light dome on this one, and this is crazy, a tiny softbox. So we're going to put the tiny softbox on this one. Oh, let's put that back out again here. There we go. And the tiny softbox has a little clutch here to release it once it's opened. We can turn this up a little brighter now. I will be the first to admit that this softbox is comically small and kind of has limited utility when it comes to a full-size object, but if you're shooting things that are smaller, this is a perfectly reasonable softbox. However, let's look closely at this. This is not a dual diffuse softbox, and we do have a hot spot in the middle. But again, thankfully, with the Bowens mount, we can make that whatever size we want with just a normal softbox. Bluetooth app, unfortunately I can't really rate the usability of that because it's not working great with my pre-production devices. On the backs here we have these bright, easily readable screens. The viewing angles are fantastic. You can see it from all angles, which I feel like should be a no-brainer, but not all lights, even more expensive ones, have terrible viewing angles. Such as this Amaran. Viewing angles on that screen are just atrocious. And also the fans are very, very quiet on these. I mean, how could it not be? The air flows right through this, no problem. This is a tough one to grade. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for usability because, again, super versatile, but also works itself into a corner in some ways. Value. This one is also very tough. And I think Zhiyun did a great job of like carving out their own niche here because it's hard to directly compare these to a lot of things. So, I mean, the most obvious thing to throw in here would be this, the Godox ML60 bicolor. It's $300. There are a lot of different ways of buying this. You can buy the stripped down version without all these bells and whistles of the X100 for $250 and the G60 for $200. Or you can get these accessory kits all the way up to $350 or $250. And honestly, for me, as cute as the G60 is, it's going to be a matter of opinion. I think the X100 is definitely the way to go when it comes to versatility and power and form factor, because although this is more powerful, it can usually fit in almost any place that this can fit and then have more power, or you can put the battery on the side. It's in many ways smaller and more versatile, so that's phenomenal. Here's a light that's considered compact. It's the GVM SD80, I believe. It's quite small, and you can mount batteries on the side of it here. And this is $160, so this is very cheap. It's also gigantic by comparison. but we have a similar amount of power output. It kind of lands in between the two. But look at the size of this thing. This doesn't have as much power as that. Other small lights, an Amran 60X is $200, still way bigger. C-Ray C60B, that is smaller, but still not nearly as small, for $250. And, you know, we have more normal things, such as, say, the small rig here, the 120B. This has a little bit more power than this, and it is $260. 5 times the size. For $10 more. So, overall, I have to say that these are a 10 out of 10 for value. Number one, they're basically in their own category. Number two, they're still an excellent value even when you compare them to comparable light output devices. Alright, so overall that's a 39.5 out of 50, or a 79%, which is a very strong score on my charts. Again, the score is not entirely relevant because how are we going to cross-shop these? If you know that you have a use for lights that are this small, this compact, this versatile, you already know who you are. The one problem that I have, they don't come with a COB cap. If they came with a teeny tiny little cap here, I would be so happy. And then I would feel so much more comfortable with just slamming this in my bag and not having to worry about anything. And it's the same way for this one here. It's not covered. I think they came with a sticker on it. I love the direction this is going. Thank you, Zhiyun, for innovating and making something new and different. If you have any questions about these crazy tiny lights, let me know down in the comments below. If you want to pick up any of these lights, there are links down in the description below to help to support this channel and feed my fat cats. So, until next time, keep it small, go take some photos.